Hey everybody, Adam Zundel with the collegesoccernews.com podcast. Pleased to be joined today by a good friend of the show, West Virginia head coach Marlon LeBlanc. Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Adam. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Mountaineers off to a great start this year, and it seems like the last time you gave up a goal, we were still in swimming pools. So tell us a little bit about, the Mountaineers start.
Yeah, we've gotten off to a pretty good start. We played a pretty good Seattle team out at the Akron tournament to open the weekend, and Pete Ewing's got a wonderful team out there, but we kind of felt even the goals that we conceded in that game, which were both in the first half, were probably a little bit on us. In particular, the second one right before the end of the first half. And since then, we've been pretty much locked down, for lack of better ways of putting it. And it's been a collective effort, not just one where you kind of look at the defense and you look at Jose Santos in the goal. It's been team defending really at its best so far for us.
I know no coach wants to be put in a position where you've conceded a goal. If you go all the way to December without giving up one, I'm sure you'd be fine. But are you curious to see now that your team, has done this, how they're going to respond when they maybe concede one or have to maybe change a little bit of tactics down one?
Yeah, sure. It'd be crazy to think that we can run an entire slate up and see another goal, though. You'd like to think we could win a couple championships along the way if we did. But at some stage, it's probably going to happen. And I think as long as one doesn't turn into two, doesn't turn into three, I think we can probably find a way to respond. At the end of the day, we still got to score in order to win. So if we concede one, we still got a shot at winning the game. So, it's one of those things where we're on a nice little run right now, but at some stage we're going to drop a goal. But I like to think my team will be able to respond when that happens.
I've seen you guys play, obviously, multiple times. Some games have been grinds in terms of the scoreboard. Some games you've actually, you've been able to put a couple on the board, but it seems like your play has been the same. And, you're obviously possessing the ball. When you're grinding out those and you're finding it difficult in front of the net, when you go to training, how do you try and maybe try to find those scores that are going to, open the floodgates and try to, manage two or three in a game?
Yeah, I think winning college soccer games is tough. And we've played good soccer all year long, and some of those games, you're right, they've been grinds to find a goal. But the game itself hasn't necessarily been a grind. We've played well. We've carried the bulk of play. We've knocked the ball around. We've opened some teams up, and we've just been unlucky. For example, we ran into a very well coached, very stubborn ETSU team, and they took us to overtime, and goalkeeper actually stood on his head and was tremendous. They were a good team. They're just tough enough to break down. Proof is they went and turned around the next game and went and beat UNC at UNC when they were number one in the country. Same with the well coached Princeton team. We had a lot of play. We conceded one shot in the game, which had to grind to find the goal. And we try and replicate those scenarios in practice by condensing space and making it hard for our guys to find goals in training. And it's not fun. And a lot more times than not, they're not successful in a training environment where your space is limited and the numbers are compact and we're trying to get to goal in tight areas. But we like to think over 90 minutes plus that we can find a way to open one up. And, we've had a couple of games where we've gotten an early goal, and I think that's really changed the complexion of the match when we've scored early on, because then the opponent does now need to open themselves up a little bit. And I think from us, our philosophy is to get the first goal in the game. We'd like it to be before the 95th, 96th minute, but so far we've been able to recognize when we've scored early on in matches, we've been able to find multiple goals in games.
Have you seen different approaches from teams? A lot of the games that I've seen, you've seen a lot of people try to maybe sit and counter. Has that been a majority of what you've seen so far this year? And then I'm sure you're going to, you have the Akrons and Marylands coming up that are going to probably take a different approach. Are you guys preparing, to kind of see different styles?
Yeah, I think our schedule has done a pretty good job of preparing us for that. Opening weekend, we had two teams that came after us in Seattle and Georgetown. And I think as scouts have gone out and film has probably circulated its way around, I think a lot of teams have probably gained a little bit of respect for what we can do offensively in terms of keeping the ball and playing And so that tactic has changed a little bit, and we've seen a far more of a counter-attacking type of purpose from our opponents. And we're getting the full gamut, certainly without a doubt. We've seen the physical play as well. I think our foul count is about half of what our opponents is right now. But it is part and parcel for college soccer. You're going to see all different types of play, all different types of style. Right now, we're seeing one that is counterattacking, and we prepare for that in game, we prepare for that in training, and the hopes is that we can execute come game time. And right now, we're doing that. We're finding a way to do that, and every game is going to be a different challenge. When we see St. Mary's this weekend, they're a very counterattacking style team, a very direct style team, but they've played their best soccer against the best opponents that they've faced this year, and they score goals in boatloads. And Bowling Green is another very direct side. But then in 2 weeks' time, we get Maryland, who's going to play, and they're going to put the ball down, and they're an exciting team that Sasha's got this year. So we've really worked hard at our schedule to make sure that we see the full gamut of opponents, and we adapt, accordingly.
You talked about the video kind of circulating, and I'd be surprised if anybody that's seen you play over the last few years, if when they're doing their scouting report, Joey Piatczyc's not at the top of that. And so tell me a little bit about his play, so impressive on the ball, and how important is it for him as he is at the top of that list to still have an impact on the game, even though people are going to come at him, people are going to foul him, people are going to try and knock him off the ball to try and play through that, because he is such a vital part of what you all do, even though you have a lot of great other players around him, to play through that and still put his fingerprints on the game, or footprints, I guess I should say.
Yeah, Joey Piatczyc will certainly go down as one of my favorite players ever. I think one of the best qualities that he has is that he'll give anything to the team. And so he's a special player, but he's a special player who's willing to defend. He'll do the grunt work. He'll do the busy work. He'll do the tracking back. He'll do anything I ask of him. And I think the fact that he's willing to do that, he still finds a way to influence the match, even if he's being man marked or being tackled hard, because he does all the other little things at him. When you have special players that are willing to do all the small things, they find a way to kind of shine the brightest on the pitch. And I don't think there's any time you watch us play that Joey Piatczyc still doesn't find a way to shine the brightest. And he's been man-marked all year. He's been fouled and hit hard all year. But his influence is felt in other facets outside of just scoring goals and assists, because he's so busy, so he's on the ball so much. And without a doubt, having good players around him helps him as well, because the fact that he's able to connect quicker and be an influence in terms of circulating our balls out of the center of the midfield, and then his willingness to work for others. I mean, the kid's a pro. He's a pro, and he's playing at West Virginia University, and I think he got a great foundation with Sporting KC Academy, and I think we've been fortunate enough to see him grow even more over the last 2.5 years here with us.
How great is it as a coach when your quote-unquote best player or whatever is that kind of kid that is working all over the field, goals, assists, whatever, but how does that kind of help you try to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish and kind of feed to the other players as well?
I think every coach will tell you that they have a team-first philosophy, that the idea is that, we want to win games as a team. The individual stuff comes to afterwards. But it's another thing for your team to believe it and buy into it. And when your best player, one of your top players, one of the top players in the country, also buys into it and his actions show it to the rest of his teammates, then everybody else can collectively jump on board too. There isn't a selfish bone in the kid's body. He wants to win first and foremost. He wants to win for WVU. And because of that, everybody else feeds off of it. He's an incredibly charismatic kid. He's got this team by the coattails. Everybody, Joey says it, everybody's going to do it. And so if his actions and his words are that of a true captain and buying into the team philosophy first, it's easy for everybody else to fall in line too.
You talked about it earlier, how tough it is to win college soccer games, and you look at the MAC right now, and all but one team I think is well over 500, and I don't care who you're playing, to compile that kind of record so far in that league. You got a tough road ahead of you. I know you still have some non-conference games, but tell me a little bit about what you're planning on facing. And I know every coach wants to win a league title before they, as you talked about, winning championships before you can take any other steps. So how tough is that MAC coming up?
Yeah, I mean, wow, what a meteoric rise the MAC has had over the last few years. We like to think we've been a big part of that, but when you look at the Western Michigans and the Bowling Greens and the Buffaloes, and of course the Akron Zips, you look at a league that has now teetered amongst the top 4 or 5 in the RPI right now. And when you have a tough league like this, every game matters, especially in a league that only has 6 teams. So you only have 5 league games, so every one of them is going to be a grind. But there's no doubt that, even though NIU is struggling a little bit, Eric coaches that team very, very well out there, and they're going to be tough come league time. But the fact that we've put ourselves as a league in a position where the non-conference schedule has gone, predominantly in our favor from a wins-loss ties perspective, we only strengthen our cause when it comes to RPI time by playing our in-league games. And so, yeah, we happen to be in a position now where we're kind of leading the charge for the MAC from an RPI perspective. But certainly we've got some tough bouts ahead of us down the road. First off, being Bowling Green next Friday night. This league has proven that we can play with anyone, and we've gone out in non-conference perspective and done it. So the MAC's going to be a tough out this year, and you saw a team like Akron go to the Final Four a year ago. So it can happen out of this league. And if we're consistently now going to be battling for Final Fours and top 4 or 5 conferences in the country, when you're up there with the ACC, the PAC, the big boys and everybody else, and you like to think, the MAC's got a shot at having a championship team.
You talked about only 5 conference matches on the schedule. It's kind of a double-edged sword because you expose yourself to a lot of non-conference games, and this year, teams are winning, and that's good. But on a year when you have that many non-conference games, that can also be a hindrance. Is that kind of tough to balance for not just you but the entire conference as well?
Yeah, I think from a coaching perspective, our coaches are committed to essentially going out and playing the best competition we can play. And at the end of the day, we got to get wins to carry any type of hope for our league to do well from an RPI perspective, because at the end of the day, the RPI is what determines your NCAA fate. But I think across the board, we've got coaches that are committed to playing top teams, and you saw that with our schedule with Seattle and Georgetown and Maryland coming up, and then obviously Akron will play a fantastic schedule as well, playing UCLA and SMU and a number of other top teams, and Western Michigan goes out and plays top Big Ten teams, so Bowling Green. Yeah, I mean, from the flip side, if you don't win them, it hurts. But I think our kids come here to play in big games. That's competition, and if you're trying to sell your recruits and your program to be a top program, then you got to play the best. And so, we're fortunate that we've got some great relationships around the country that we can bring a team like a Maryland to West Virginia and play us. But playing is one thing and winning is another. And so I think it's easy to motivate your kids for those games. And certainly we look forward to those challenges every time we see one.
I know in the middle part of the season, it's really tough to work on things as you've got game after game after game. But when you go out to training these days, what are some things that you're really trying to get them to focus on? And obviously a record's great, but you're all about the process and trying to get better. What are some of the things that you all are trying to get better at?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. We met as a staff about 3 weeks ago before we hit this 5 games and 16-day stretch. We talked a little bit about our periodization, and I said to my staff, including my athletic trainer, my strength coach, and my coaches, we meet as a staff every morning. I said, I got to change something. So that September at this time of year has been a grind for us every year. We start school a little bit earlier than everybody else, so we hit those first set of examinations at a really tough spot. And I said, I want to get through this portion of the schedule as best as we possibly can. And it turned out pretty good. Went 4-0-1, but we had to change our periodization a little bit, and it was more about recovery than it was necessarily about trying to grind some things out. And we would take bits and pieces of what we would see in terms of our scouting and on film, and just kind of implement them into our recovery, into what we were doing. Really focus more on ourselves during that period of time. And so I changed our periodization a little bit this year to help us get through September. Change it again a little bit now to get us into October. But as we have a little bit more time now between games, the idea for us is going to be to recover as best we can from the game prior. We do a lot of stuff using science with polar and activity monitor, heart rate monitoring, a lot of stuff with a lot of the mileage that we're putting on our guys and training loads, and really trying and utilize that as best we can to make sure that our guys are peaking come game time. So our training philosophy pretty much stays the same with a little bit of tweaks. We're very highly, I'm big on technique, and the technical side of things is number one for me with our players. They've got to be able to pass and receive the ball. Otherwise, everything else falls apart tactically and or from a combination standpoint, whether it's playing or set pieces. If you can't do things properly from a technical perspective, everything else breaks down. So that's our foundation, is technical side of things. And so every day is always going to have some element of technical work in it. It's always going to have some element of speed and agility in it, some element of possession, and then some element of being able to break the lines and go forward with that possession. Defending is something that we look at a couple of days before the game every week. And we work on our shape, we work on our pressure. But then building into game day, the philosophy is that we're getting ourselves to 100%. And I had the privilege of spending a week with Greg Berhalter of the Columbus Crew this summer. Had the privilege of spending 10 days in Spain at Getafe and Real Madrid and Atletico de Madrid, watching the Spain U17s, and really trying to collect a lot of what they did heading into a match week and their progression, taking a lot of what, as most good coaches do, they steal from other good coaches and try and implement it into what they're doing at their own places. And so, it really is a man management. Our college soccer is unlike any other league on the planet. We're trying to change that so it's a little bit better. But, I think the idea is always to make sure that we're staying sharp, but we're obviously also recovering.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I bet they didn't really have a plan for, 5 games in 16 days. They probably looked at you like you were from another planet rather than from another country.
Yeah, I think when I said that to some of the coaches in Spain, they had no idea what I was talking about. It was crazy.
Yeah, you probably have 3 different teams. Team A, Team B, Team C playing in those 5 matches.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. Last question: as the season kind of goes on, and it is so difficult, like you said, to win games. What do you think can be the difference for you all this year? Is it maintaining that aggressive nature on defense and offense, the control and keep it a 0? Is it going to be a set piece? Is it luck? Is it health? I'm sure the answer is yes to all of those, but can you maybe kind of pinpoint some things that you really think are key to maybe getting a deep run into the College Cup?
Yeah, sure. I think it is, like you said, all the above. I think first and foremost, if we don't concede goals, we cannot lose. That's been kind of our mantra most of the year, all year. Other mantras wouldn't look forward regardless of whether we've won or lost, and we've done a good job at that. I think one of the things that set us apart so far is we've had a pretty nice squad rotation through September, through that high congestion of matches, and we've used quite a few players that have stepped in, whether it's been for 30, 40 minutes or it's been for 90 minutes. This year we made a commitment to rotating our squad a little bit to keep guys fresh, to deal with the injuries, to make sure that we weren't going to have one good match and then turn around and struggle in another one because we were so exhausted. I think if we're able to lean on that backbone of the 16, 17 guys that we've played for the majority of minutes through most of September into October, and have that experience, whether it be a freshman like Ryan Kellogg, who has stepped in for another freshman, Albert Yap, who's been our starter but went down with injury. Ryan Kellogg had played quite a few minutes before Albert went down and was able to seamlessly step into the left back position and take that over and take it over to such a high level that we haven't missed a beat. And Felix Anger went down against 8 minutes into the game, and we were able to rotate Rashawn Larmond into it without missing a beat. And now we're getting those guys back again. And so I think if we can stay healthy, obviously, but also continue to depend on our squad rotation to manage injuries and manage fatigue into October, I think our depth could be the difference for us heading into the postseason as well.
All right, Coach, always good talking to you. Thanks for spending some time with us. Great start to the season. I know you got a long way. Best luck the rest of the way.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks.